The most competitive division in the AFC, definitely, probably in the NFL, the AFC West, because the Denver Broncos were 7-10 last year. Chiefs went 12-5. The Denver Broncos added a guy you're very familiar with in Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, is he in his prime? I think so. I think he's in his late prime. I think he's in his prime. But the one thing he's done consistently throughout his entire career has been win. And you give him a roster, a base roster that went 7-10. Because the rosters he's been playing with, right when Russell Wilson left, what did everyone say about those rosters? This is the worst team in the NFL. This team isn't going to win a single game. This team is horrible. Right when Russell Wilson left. That's all they got rid of. They changed quarterbacks to a young quarterback in Drew Lock. That's all they did. All of a sudden, they're horrible. Is Russell Wilson and his motivating, game-breaking, heart-pumping, make you run through a brick wall, Broncos country less ride mentality going to be able to win that division?
Okay, they're tough because the reason why I have the Ravens as the clearest number one team for this is because of the other division opponents.
Yeah.
They're in the toughest division, like you mentioned. That is very obvious. You have the Chargers who made significant upgrades. We're going to talk about all these upgrades later too. You got the Raiders. You got the Chiefs, of course, and the Chiefs might have lost some, but you're still rocking out with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So you're going to put up points, that's for sure. When I look at the Broncos, I think you could make the case that they're a better team than the Ravens. However, they're in a division that's so tough. So what it's really going to come down to is how healthy are they? How good is the offensive line? Because before the last 2 years, it was really bad year after year after year in Denver, and they have got some improved offensive line play. So they've been better. It's not the best, but Garrett Bowles definitely took a big turnaround over the last couple of years because his first few years in the league, he was one of the worst tackles out of every fucking tackle. It was crazy. And now he had the most absurd amount of holding penalties, I think it was, for Bowles, but he's in a much better spot. I'm a little bit concerned about part of their defense. Now, they have a legit no-fly zone. Their secondary is so good, but their defensive line, they have a couple guys I like, but outside of Bradley Chubb, there's not really any stars there. They signed DJ Jones, who's former 49er, really solid 0 or 1 tech kind of nose tackle guy. Linebackers, they have right now, apparently their starting linebackers are going to be Jonas Griffith and Josie Jewell, who Jonas Griffith was like a fourth or fifth linebacker on the Niners during camp last year, and they traded him to the Broncos. Josie Jewell, coming out of Iowa, kind of a guy that's not a great pass coverage guy. So they're a little bit limited on the defensive side of the ball, but I absolutely love their secondary. I think they're a prime candidate for a team that might go and make a move for either a backer or a D end or whatever it is at the deadline. But I am a little bit concerned about their defense, but the reason why I think that they're a playoff team, I do think they're a playoff team. I don't know if they win the division just because I think I don't know who wins that division. I think 3 teams make the playoffs and a random one wins the division. I don't know who it is. I would probably put my money on the Chiefs just because I'm not ever selling the Chiefs again after last year. But I don't know. You lose Tyreek too, so we'll talk about that later. But I think the biggest thing for me of why I think that they're a playoff team is because of the Russell Wilson receiver core combo. And I'm not talking, he's got Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. I'm talking he's got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and KJ Hamler. And that is absolutely disgusting. This is by far the best receiving core he's had. And if we want to kind of do a little, extension of those wide receivers, you also have Alberto, who Broncos fans like quite a bit as a tight end, solid guy. Greg DeLuche coming out of UCLA. I think I said his last name right. Mm-hmm. But the big thing is, out of the backfield, you also have Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. So they are so stacked from a weapon standpoint that, yes, there's some holes in their defense, but they have a great secondary. They have a star pass rusher in Bradley Chubb, and the offensive skill positions it is such a difference from what Russell Wilson has had throughout his entire career in Seattle. I mean, he had, Doug Baldwin. He's had the recent receiving core has been the best with Lockett and Metcalf, but this completely blows it out of the water. And especially when you bring in those two running backs, like this is the most talented running back backfield in the entire NFL. Maybe not the best as a complementary pieces. You can also toss in the Browns there too, but I think Melvin Gordon is heavily underrated, and I think Javonte showed that he's going to be one of the premier backs in the league last year, and that might even happen this year. But Melvin Gordon can start on a lot of teams in the NFL, so I think that's there. I guess they're the second because the Browns are stupidly talented there.
Yeah.
But then receiving cores, I don't know if there's a deeper receiving core than what they're rocking out. It is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at it, I'm going to say without a doubt, I think they win their division, and I have a reason for that. If you're looking at the entire NFL, and you're looking at what the Denver Broncos were looking at last year, they were looking to add a quarterback, or at least this offseason. There were a couple of guys that they could potentially trade for. They could trade for Aaron Rodgers, was the big name. They could risk it all and go with a Deshaun Watson. They could maybe go for a Baker. They could go for a Sam Darnold. Or they could go for Russell Wilson. They ended up going with Russell Wilson, who I think is on the same level as Aaron Rodgers, especially right now. Like, I think Russell Wilson, for some reason, people don't see this guy as a top 5 quarterback. I think without a doubt he's a top 5 quarterback. He's had to do it all for 8 years, basically. He's been that entire team. And if I'm looking at every team in the NFL, the scariest team to play in a high-scoring shootout is the Denver Broncos, without a doubt in my mind. When you're putting up points and your offenses are moving, there is no one scarier than Russell Wilson in a shootout. I guess I get some people will say, oh, it's Mahomes. Oh, it's Justin Herbert. It's Aaron Rodgers. It's Tom Brady. Russell Wilson. I have a firm, passionate hatred towards the Seattle Seahawks. The amount of times that I have been just rooting for this man to lose, and all of a sudden they just keep putting up points. They keep putting up points. They keep putting up points. They keep doing that. Then you mix that, right? I didn't say highest scoring offense. I said high scoring games. Because what's going to happen when you get into those 35-35 games late in the fourth quarter? You have a secondary with playmakers at every single position. Why did the Chiefs lose in the last game of their season last year against the Cincinnati Bengals? What happened, Matt? High scoring game?
You can't trust your secondary. That's been their problem, and it's been their problem late in games. And they don't have, they have Chris Jones, but they don't have another guy to really make a big play.
And what happened for the Cincinnati Bengals secondary? Did they get an interception in overtime when everyone complained, how dare you not change the coin toss rule? It's unfair. If a guy like Patrick Mahomes wins the coin toss, automatic win. Secondary in a high-scoring game made the difference, made the play. Well, you have Russell Wilson, who is borderline unstoppable, with the game on the line. About the best in the NFL, probably the best in the NFL, alongside great weapons on offense and defense, and in an atmosphere like Denver where, man, those moon balls, they're no longer going 55 yards. They're going 75 yards, which makes them even scarier when you got KJ Hamler running underneath them. So I absolutely think they're going to win that division because those divisional games are going to be high scoring and they're going to be shootouts. Look at every divisional game between all those teams last year that are close, between the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Denver Broncos. They're all high scoring.